The wind screamed through the red canyon like a living thing the moment she slipped. A sharp cry tearing from her throat as loose stones betrayed her feet, and the world tilted into chaos. And for one frozen heartbeat she saw only sky before gravity claimed her. Her arms flailing, dust and pebbles spinning around her as memories flashed like gunfire in her mind. Running from the Apache camp at dawn, the fear in her chest heavier than the small bundle she carried, the whispers that she could never belong. Again when suddenly, pain and terror collided, and then something impossible happened. A powerful arm wrapped around her waist, jerking her sideways into a violent roll as both bodies slammed hard against the canyon slope, tumbling together until they crashed into a narrow ledge where silence rushed back like a held breath, and the man beneath her groaned as she lay stunned, heart hammering so loudly she thought he could hear it. And when she lifted her head she saw him, a cowboy, dust-covered, hat knocked aside, one hand gripping the rock with bleeding fingers, the other still locked around her as if letting go was not an option, his eyes wide not with fear but fierce determination. And in that instant she realized she was alive only because he had chosen her life over his own. He pushed himself upright slowly, wincing, and looked at her as if trying to decide whether she was real or a mirage, born from heat and danger, then asked in a low, steady voice if she was hurt, and she could only shake her head, words trapped in her throat by shock and disbelief, because moments ago she had been certain death was waiting below, and now she was sitting on a narrow ledge with a stranger who smelled of leather, sweat, and sun-baked earth, and who had risked everything without knowing her name. He introduced himself as Caleb Moore, a rancher riding through the canyon on his way to trade supplies, and said he had seen her fall just as his horse reared, instinct pulling him forward before thought could stop him. And she told him her name was Eliza, though it was not the name she was born with, her voice trembling as she confessed she had nowhere to go and no one left to trust. And as they talked, the sun began to dip lower, shadows stretching like long fingers across the canyon walls. And Caleb knew they could not stay on the ledge much longer because night in this land was as dangerous as any man. So he secured a rope, anchoring it with calm, practiced movements, and helped her descend inch by inch, his voice steady, grounding her fear with each careful step, until at last their boots touched solid ground and she collapsed against the canyon wall, tears finally breaking free as the weight of survival hit her all at once. Caleb offered her water, then his horse, and though pride urged her to refuse, she was too exhausted to argue, so she accepted, and as they rode toward his ranch under a sky slowly turning gold and violet, she felt something unfamiliar stirring beneath the fear, a fragile hope she dared not name. Along the way she told him fragments of her story, how she had been taken years ago after a raid, raised between two worlds, never fully belonging to either, and how now both sides hunted her for different reasons, one for betrayal and the other for blood. And Caleb listened without judgment, his silence kinder than questions, until they reached his ranch tucked against the edge of the desert like a promise, carved from hardship, where he gave her a blanket, a warm meal, and a place by the fire. And as flames flickered across his weathered face, she realized this man, this stranger who had caught her mid-fall, might be the last chance fate had left her, even if trusting him could cost her everything. And before the fire burned low and sleep claimed her, she looked toward the dark horizon and wondered whether survival was a gift or a test she was not yet ready to face. And if this cowboy's path had crossed hers by accident or by design, because in the Wild West nothing happened without a price. If this story is pulling you into its dusty heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel now, because this is only the beginning of a journey where every choice can mean life or death. Morning came harsh and bright, the sun climbing fast as if eager to expose secrets the night had hidden, and Eliza woke with a start, momentarily forgetting where she was, until the creak of the ranch house and the distant nickering of horses reminded her, and as she sat up she saw Caleb outside mending a fence, his movement steady and purposeful, a man shaped by routine and resilience, and something in his quiet strength eased the tight knot of fear in her chest even as danger still lingered, like a shadow at her back. Over breakfast he told her, plainly, that men had been spotted in the
canyon the night before.
Riders moving with purpose, not traders or drifters, and she knew immediately they were looking for her, the past catching up no matter how far she ran. And when she admitted this, he didn't flinch or demand explanations. He only said she could stay as long as she needed, but warned that his protection came with risks, because those who hunted in this land rarely stopped until blood was paid. Days passed in tense rhythm, with Eliza helping around the ranch. Learning the quiet language of survival Caleb lived by, how to read the sky, how to listen to the land, how to trust instincts sharpened by loss, and slowly walls she had built over years began to crack, and she found herself laughing once, then again surprised by the sound of it, surprised that peace could exist even temporarily in a world so cruel. But peace never lasted long in the Wild West, and one evening as the sun bled red across the horizon, gunshots shattered the calm, riders emerging like ghosts from the dust, their intentions clear, and Caleb moved instantly, pushing Eliza toward the house, handing her a rifle and telling her calmly that whatever happened, she must not freeze, because fear was more deadly than bullets. The fight was brutal and fast, echoing across the open land, and when the dust settled, 2 men lay wounded and the rest had fled. But Caleb was down, blood soaking his shirt where a bullet had grazed too close, and Eliza knelt beside him, hands shaking as she pressed cloth to the wound, realizing with terrifying clarity that the roles had reversed, that now she was the one holding someone's life between her hands. As she worked, she confessed everything: the escape, the blood debt, the tribe that wanted her dead for leaving, and the men who wanted her silenced for what she knew. And Caleb listened through clenched teeth, pain etched across his face, before gripping her wrist and telling her she didn't owe him explanations or guilt, only honesty and the will to keep going. When dawn broke again, she made a choice she had avoided her whole life. Instead of running, she would stand and fight, not just for herself but for the man who had saved her without asking why. Together they planned, using the land as their ally, drawing the hunters into terrain that favored knowledge over numbers, and when the final confrontation came, it was swift and decisive. The canyon that had almost claimed her life becoming the place where her past finally lost its grip. When it was over, silence returned heavier than before, and Eliza stood at the canyon edge, looking down at the drop that had nearly ended her story, understanding now that falling had not been her end but her beginning. And when she turned, Caleb was there, still wounded but standing, offering her a future not as a rescue but as a choice. She took his hand, knowing the road ahead would be hard and unforgiving, but for the first time she was not alone, and in the Wild West that made all the difference. If you felt the danger, the emotion, and the hope woven into this story, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because more unforgettable Wild West tales of courage, survival, and unexpected love are waiting just ahead.